1. The town beneath the fog. The town of Ravenswood was the kind of place where fog rolled in like a living thing. It crept between the cobblestone streets, curled around gas lamps, and clung to the wooden shutters of houses that leaned into the wind. People spoke softly there, as if afraid the mist itself might listen. At the heart of this quiet town stood Ravenswood Manor, a towering structure of gray stone and ivy, with windows that seemed to blink in the changing light. It was older than the town itself, a relic of another century. Some said it was cursed, others said it was just lonely. And in that mansion lived Evelyn Blackthorne, the widow of Ravenswood. She was 58, elegant in her grief, and rarely seen without her black gloves. Her late husband, Jonathan Blackthorne, had been the richest man in the county. When he died, suddenly and mysteriously, the townspeople whispered that Evelyn hadn't shed a single tear. Now, the widow ruled her estate like a queen of shadows. 2. The return of the light. Evelyn stood on the balcony that overlooked the town, her silver hair catching the pale dawn light. From this height, Ravenswood looked peaceful, unaware of its own secrets. She lifted a cup of tea to her lips, her hand steady, her expression calm. But inside her heart, something stirred, not sorrow, but a kind of hunger. For years she had lived alone in that house, surrounded by silence and old portraits that watched her wherever she went. Every night she could hear whispers in the hallways, not ghosts, she told herself, but memories. Down below, the townspeople began to wake. The baker lit his ovens. The church bell rang. Evelyn smiled faintly. She liked the sound of life moving on without her. It made her feel untouchable. Then came the sound of a car engine, unfamiliar in the quiet morning. She looked down the winding road and saw a figure stepping out of a silver car, a young woman in a beige coat carrying a camera and a notebook. 3. The stranger in town. Her name was Clara Moore, a freelance journalist from the city. She had come to Ravenswood for what she called a feature piece on local legends. In truth, she wanted the story that no one else had the courage to tell. What really happened to Jonathan Blackthorne. When Clara entered the town's only cafe, the room went silent. Old men lowered their newspapers. The waitress stopped mid-pour. Everyone knew why she was there before she said a word. "You're looking for the widow," the waitress finally said, her voice trembling. "People don't go up there, miss. Not since last time." Clara raised an eyebrow. "Last time." The waitress didn't answer. She just pointed to the fog-covered hill. "Ravenswood Manor. You'll find her there, if she wants to be found." 4. The invitation. Later that afternoon, Clara stood before the iron gates of Ravenswood Manor. The gates groaned as she pushed them open, revealing a long path lined with wilted roses. The mansion rose at the end like something out of a dream, or a nightmare. She knocked on the heavy wooden door. It opened before she could knock a second time. "Miss Moore," said a smooth, calm voice. Evelyn Blackthorne stood in the doorway, dressed in black silk, her eyes sharp and intelligent. "I've been expecting you." The Clara blinked. "You knew I was coming?" "Of course. The town talks. They always do." Evelyn gestured for her to enter. "Come in. You must be cold." The interior of the house was grand but suffocating. Velvet curtains blocked the daylight. Chandeliers hung like frozen tears. Every wall was covered in paintings, all of them of Evelyn, at different ages, always beautiful, always unchanging. Clara took out her notebook. "Mrs. Blackthorne, Call me Evelyn," the widow interrupted, smiling faintly. "Everyone does, eventually." 5. The interview. They sat in the drawing room, beside a fire that burned too quietly. Evelyn poured tea into porcelain cups, the kind that looked delicate enough to break with a breath. "So," Evelyn said, "you want to know about my husband?" Clara nodded. "There are conflicting stories about his death." "Stories," Evelyn repeated softly. "Yes, that's what people in small towns create when they have nothing else to do." "Did you love him?" Clara asked. Evelyn looked into the fire for a long moment. "Once," she said finally. "But love is a fragile thing, Miss Moore. It doesn't survive lies." There was a pause, and in that silence Clara heard something. Faint footsteps in the hall above them, though Evelyn hadn't called for anyone. "Do you live here alone?" she asked. Evelyn smiled. "In a sense." 6. The portrait room. After the interview, Evelyn offered to show Clara around. "People come to see the gardens," she said, "but the real beauty is inside." They stopped before a grand door at the end of a corridor. Evelyn pushed it open. The room was filled with portraits, dozens of them, each one painted with astonishing realism. The air smelled faintly of oil and dust. Clara's eyes widened. The faces in the paintings were familiar, townspeople, some old, some young. "What is this place?" Clara whispered. Evelyn ran her fingers along a golden frame. A gallery of gratitude. Every person here owed me something and gave me something in return. Clara frowned. But some of these people, they're dead. Yes, said Evelyn softly. But art keeps them alive, don't you think? 7. The storm that night. A storm rolled over Ravenswood. Clara was offered a guest room. It's not safe to drive in this weather, Evelyn had said. And she accepted, though uneasily. Lightning flashed through the window as she lay awake, listening to the sound of rain on glass. Somewhere in the hall, a clock chimed 3 times. Then she heard it again, the footsteps, slow, dragging, and close. Clara got up and followed the sound into the corridor. The air felt colder here, heavier. She turned a corner and froze. A door at the far end of the hall was glowing faintly from underneath. She approached and pushed it open. Inside was a small studio, easels, paintbrushes, half-finished portraits. On one of them the paint was still wet, and the face being painted was hers. 8. The truth beneath the canvas. Evelyn entered silently behind her. "You shouldn't be here," she said. Clara spun around. "You're painting me. Why? What is this?" The widow stepped forward, her face calm. "It's how I preserve beauty in life. My husband taught me the ritual. When he tried to end it, he paid the price." Clara's voice shook. "You killed him." Evelyn tilted her head. "I set him free. His soul lives on." In the portrait by the stairs, Clara's eyes darted to the paintings on the walls. They seemed to shimmer now, the eyes almost blinking. Whispering, "You're insane," she whispered. Evelyn smiled sadly. "Perhaps. But insanity is just another word for devotion.